So anyway, why don't we do a little recap, and then I will give you, let's say, some possibilities in the event that you are interested in working with some combination of me and my team. Don't pay taxes now, pay taxes later, except for the Roth. And that idea applies in the accumulation stage, the distribution stage, and even after you're gone. We covered the best order to accumulate money for retirement. We covered the best order to spend your money in retirement. We talked about distribution options at retirement. We talked about how the Secure Act works, and some of the nuances of the Secure Act and ways to get around that. We talked about gifting strategies. We talked about combining a number of strategies. So at the very beginning, I talked about how I put together a group of experts to help me with my problem. And I'm going to suggest that you should consider doing the same thing. Ideally, the experts will be in communication with each other, meaning that we have, let's say, for example, an estate attorney. We have we have a financial advisor. We have a CPA crunching the numbers, and all of them working together for your benefit. So this is what we can offer. So I don't do all these things, but we do have within our team, and let's say including our joint venture partners, we do have all those capabilities, and we all do talk with each other, and we interact, and we run numbers, and we review your estate plan, etc. So we basically have two models. So the assets under management is our classic model, and frankly, we're running out of capacity for the other one. But the two models that we have are, one, your financial master plan. And again, this is really what is the best strategy for you. It starts with a discussion with me, and I would say riff, if you will, throwing out a whole bunch of different ideas for both retirement planning and estate planning. And one of our very sophisticated CPAs is on that Zoom call with us. At the conclusion of that call, which might be between 1 and 2 hours, depending, then we've thrown out a lot of different ideas. Then the CPA literally crunches the numbers. Okay, if we use idea number 1, here's where you are. If you use idea number 2, here's where you are. Here's where you will be with idea number 3. Here's, by the way, something that I thought of that Jim didn't mention, et cetera, et cetera. And in addition, we're not only looking for the best, and by the way, Roth IRA conversions and gifting are often a very important component of that. But we also look at how much money you can spend. We also look at the best estate plan, as well as Roth IRA conversions. Now, for the estate plan, if you're not a Pennsylvania resident, we're not allowed to draft your documents. But to me, it would be really a shame if we got everything right and some estate attorney botched the documents. And I hate to say this, but the vast majority of documents that we review are botched, and particularly in the IRA and retirement plan world. You are in the virtual room during much of the time that we're actually doing this. Of course, it's probably about 15 or 20 hours of the CPA's time. Much of this, obviously, you're not in the room, but you are in the room a bunch. So this isn't a pie in the sky. You don't know how we've come up with the things, and we end up with what we call an optimal plan for both retirement planning and for estate planning. We do charge $15,000 for this, potentially more if there are additional complications. We only have room for a couple of these. They are very time intensive, and very frankly, what we really believe is that most people need continual advice, where you start with a financial master plan, if you will, and then do updates every single year. And that's the assets under management plan. So assets under management, it basically includes everything of the financial master plan. We don't necessarily do the long report because we're communicating with you constantly. But we update all the information every year. So we might change the amount of gifting, the amount of Roth IRA conversions. If there's a change in the tax law that necessitates a change in strategy, we do that. And that is probably the best model. It is really good for people who are realistic enough to know they're not going to do a great job of doing it on your own. And one of my rules of thumb is if you haven't spent a lot of time on your finances up to now, you're probably not going to start. So you're probably much better off delegating it. Now, we do have $1 million minimum, and we will not necessarily take $1 million if you have a $10 million estate. It's probably going to be closer to a minimum of half of your investable assets. And this is the way it works. So you're working with, we have multiple partners or joint venture partners. Most likely the best fit is going to be Buckingham Strategic Wealth. Adam Yofan is a terrific, he's a CPA, CFP, money manager, and he works for a company called Buckingham Strategic Wealth. They use the best estate enhanced index funds, not technically index funds, on the planet, called Dimensional Fund Advisors. They also are big enough to have other funds. So they're, I think, a $50 billion company, depending on how you measure. And they have other funds that they actually like better than DFA for certain asset classes. So, for example, they use different funds for small value. They also have the alternatives, which are really interesting. My wife and I have 10% of our money invested in the alternatives, things like reinsurance, things like loans to mid-sized companies, and a number of others. And by the way, that is very consistent with what the real big boys do, you know, like the Harvard and Yale and some of the other very significant endowment funds. They have these types of investments in them. And again, by the way, I invest my money 100% the way I'm recommending for my clients. So the majority of our money is in DFA, but we do have some alternatives, and we also have some money in alternative funds other than DFA. So I think they themselves are a terrific resource, well worth the 1% or less that the fee would be. And by the way, if you are interested in learning more and meeting Adam and then meeting, let's call it the real guru, which is Larry Swedroe, that's on the Q&A tomorrow starting at 1 o'clock. And they have their own very unique value proposition. They have this 40-step process. My wife and I just had our own review with them yesterday. They brought so much to the table. Quantitative folks love these guys because you can do all kinds of what ifs, and then percentage of chance of likelihood of meeting your financial goals if you do A, and then if you do B, if you do C. And there's some overlap between that and our financial master plan. But I actually think people like having both. We kind of look at it from different viewpoints. They're more percentage of chance of succeeding. Ours is more, let's say, how much of a Roth you should do, how much of a gift you should do, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, is there some redundancy? Yes. Is it a great value to you, even to have two different things that might have some similarities? I would say absolutely yes. So how much would this cost? Well, I've heard all kinds of high fees for assets under management, but I think a reasonable fee for, let's say, $1 million of assets under management is probably in the neighborhood of 1%. And then as the amount of the investments go up, the percentage goes down to maybe as low as 50 basis points or half of 1%. And that's what Buckingham charges. So let's say that you didn't know me and you went to Buckingham, that would be the fee, 1% on, let's say, the first million, then a lower scale on additional amounts. But the way it works, if you come to me first, All right, it's still that same 1% charge. All right, so how do I get paid? Well, Buckingham will then write me a check for 50% of what you're paying them. You're still paying 1% or less, but you're getting a great money manager who I believe is well worth more than the 1% by themselves. And you're getting us with this financial master plan. We're looking at your wills. We're communicating with your estate attorney outside, assuming you don't live in Pennsylvania. But getting us, I believe, is a huge deal for, let's call it this financial master plan, Roth IRA, gifting, getting the estate plan right. And the combination of that and Buckingham with this wonderful money management, we think is a win-win-win, meaning it's great for us because we get to do what we love, which is strategy. They get to do what they love, which is their 40-step process and the investor and investments. And we think the real winner is you. So I will also share with you what my business consultant told me, because like you, I do follow business consultants. And he said, and he was not kidding at all, he said we're providing way too much value for what we actually deliver between Buckingham and us. He told me that given my gross, I should be making double what I'm making. And he advised either reducing the level of service or raising the fees to 1.5%. And I don't want to do either. I want to keep the level of service and I don't want to raise the fees. I'm happy making the money that I'm making because part of the idea of low cost indexing is low cost. So do I think it is, and I'll look you right in the digital eye, tell you I think it is the best deal that I know of anywhere. We know the consultant said, hey, there's another firm that also takes a look at some of the stuff that you do, and they're recommending Roth IRA conversions, and they're looking at people's wills and estate plans, et cetera, et cetera. But instead of charging 1%, they're charging 1.5%, which he kind of considers the market, if you will, for the level of work that we do. But we are still choosing to have the same fee that you would pay to Buckingham if you didn't get anything from me in my office. If you are a Pennsylvania resident, then we can draft your wills, trust, IRA beneficiary designations, etc. Since the pandemic, our firm has gone national. Pennsylvania residents that used to be the vast majority of our clients are now in the small minority. But for non-Pennsylvania residents, even though we're not allowed to draft your wills, trusts, beneficiary designations, etc., because we aren't licensed to practice in your state, we are allowed to review them. We are allowed to make recommendations. We are allowed to communicate with a local attorney, either somebody that you know or maybe somebody that we know or that we can find, in order for you to have the best wills, trusts, beneficiary designations, etc., because it would, to me, it doesn't make sense to hire us to optimize everything, but just ignore your will and your trust and your beneficiary designations. To me, it's more of a continuum, retirement and estate planning. It's not retirement planning. Okay, now we're going to do estate planning. If you don't have it as part of one continuum, you're not going to get the best results. So that is part of our process, if you will. The next step, if you are interested in talking with me, is to sign up for what we call a Retire Secure consultation. Very honestly, I will not talk with everybody that applies. If I don't think, because of your fact pattern, that I could provide a ton of value to you, I'll just say, hey, gee, here's a book, here's a resource, here's something else. We can't serve you. We can't provide way more value than the fee that we would charge. So you don't have to worry about, oh, gee, I'm not a good candidate. And very frankly, one of the good things about having a national audience since the pandemic is I get to be choosier about who I work with. And one of the big criteria is, of course, I would prefer to work with people who are nice. And to be honest, who's kidding whom, I prefer to work with people who have a higher balance where the fee is higher. But a very, very important component is, can I really help somebody? In some fact pattern situations, I can save people hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe more than $1 million. That's a great candidate. In other situations, I might not be particularly depending on the way people feel about things, I might not be able to really help them very much at all. In which case I'll say, hey, gee, we are not a good fit. I can't believe that if we have this consultation, I won't come up with a couple great ideas for you, again, whether we work together or not. In one, I suggested that an unmarried couple get married, and we calculated that advice alone might be worth $4 million. So sometimes just like one idea can pay for a ton of fees, and that doesn't even necessarily commit you to using us for assets under management. Again, I'm going to be switching from my CPA hat to my assets under management hat to my estate attorney hat, but it is a multidisciplinary approach, which we think is much better than talking to one CPA and one lawyer and one financial advisor, none of whom talk to each other. I've done thousands of these consultations over the years, and I've never had anyone say or even imply that it wasn't worth their time. And that was back when people were flying to Pittsburgh to see me. Now it's all done on Zoom. The likelihood is you're going to get an actionable plan to maximize retirement wealth and generational wealth. You could easily value this consultation at $1,000, maybe even much more. But we are not, at least at this point in time, we are not charging for that consultation. If you book that consultation today, and I'm going to ask Brian to put that, the way to book that consultation in the chat area. And by the way, we do ask for a lot of information. We ask that you fill out, and it's all, on secure email or hard copy mail if you prefer. And you can certainly scratch out things like Social Security numbers or anything else that frankly I don't need. But anyway, that is the way that we get started. That will tell me if I think that you are a good fit, and we are not charging for the consultation. And if you sign up for that, which I think would be a great thing for you and your family. Again, by the way, we do ask for your wills. We do ask for your trusts and your IRA beneficiary designations. And believe it or not, I actually read them. Maybe not every page and every clause, but I do go over them. And again, the vast majority are botched horribly. And sometimes just getting that right, which by the way is pretty time intensive for us. The truth is it's easier for us to just do it sometimes than to work with another estate attorney in a different state, but we actually think that is important. So the value of the consultation is really high. Again, we're probably going to end up with a wait list for the financial master plan, assets under management. That is probably going to be available to you. But again, we're going to do it in the order in which people have signed up for the consultation. So I assume, and I can't see it right now, but there should be something in the chat box for you to sign up for that consultation. Now, we also promised a bunch of bonuses, and I'm actually going to give even more bonuses than we promised. So if you go to, and you should be able to click, we're going to give you a hard copy of my most recent general book, which is Beating the New Death Tax. Website of that is paytaxeslater.com/MarchGetBook. We're going to give you a digital copy of our flagship book, Retire Secure. We're going to give you our Social Security book. We're going to give you our Roth IRA conversion book, digital copy of that. And here's the other thing. So we did a book called Retire Secure for Professors, and we're hopefully going to do that for other groups also in the future. And there's a couple of chapters specifically for professors, and even more specifically who have TIAA. But that book is our latest and greatest thinking. And even if you're not a professor, that's really the best book to read. Beating the New Death Tax is really good, but frankly, I took most of the ideas of Beating the New Death Tax and have every year, frankly, the books get better and better. And that is in Retire Secure for Professors. And you can get that. You can get a tax card. So we have a whole bunch of bonuses available. Remaining webinars today at 1 o'clock. We start with Roth IRA conversions, pay taxes once and never again. Tomorrow at 10, we do the best estate plan for IRA and retirement plan owners. And then at 1, we have a question and answer with Larry Swedrow, Adam Yofan, who's the money manager for Buckingham, and me. So again, you should be seeing something in your chat to sign up for the free consultation if you are interested. And you can also do get the bonuses. Probably the best thing would be to do both of those. So let's see how I did. I'm 6 minutes over, so that's probably better than average for me. I encourage you, come back to the Roth one at 1 Eastern today. That's a really important session. What's going to happen at the conclusion when I'm done talking, which is going to be in about a minute, is we have a message about the importance of getting all this right, which I would encourage you to listen to. I will hope to see, hopefully all of you, that's probably never going to happen, but I will hope to see most of you at 1 o'clock today. Thank you very much.